Ladies and gentlemen, donors, music lovers, congregation members and community friends, conference leadership, and all of those who connect with the Spirit of the living God through the power of music. My name is Pastor Nicole Caldwell-Gross, and I welcome you to Noblesville First United Methodist Church. Today, we gather to dedicate our new organ, a magnificent instrument that will enrich our community and inspire our spirits for generations to come. This organ is more than just a collection of pipes and keys. It is a testament to the artistry and the craftsmanship of those who built it, the generosity of those who funded it, and the dreams of those who envisioned it. Therefore, I must acknowledge all of the donors that are listed in our program. It is your generosity and your sacrificial giving that made it possible for us to purchase and to build this incredible organ. I thank you, not simply on behalf of our congregation that just this morning basked in its beauty, but on the generations to come who will be called by its sweet melody and invited to find their own tune in the symphony of faith and fellowship. I must also express my gratitude to our organ committee. We get to show up and listen to great music and have hors d'oeuvres, but they have spent the last several weeks, days, months, and even years organizing, fundraising, and coordinating this incredible project. To each of our organ committee members, we are so grateful. Grateful for your leadership and your commitment. Now, I would also be remiss if we did not honor Reynolds Associates' team of designers and builders, Thad and David Reynolds, Corey Klein, Jonathan Welch, and the late James Miller. Your God-given skill, your dedication, and your workmanship is shaped into every pipe. It rings out from every note, and we are truly grateful for the skill and the care that your expertise brought to this instrument. And finally, I must acknowledge two very special individuals. Mr. David Meets, if you could join me here. And Dr. Jeffrey Wright. Now, you are all welcome back on Sunday mornings to do just that after the sermon. But like you, we have to express our gratitude to these incredible servant leaders. King David is described in the text as a man after God's own heart. And David Meets, you live up to your namesake. I cannot tell you how many days I came into the office and peeked into the sanctuary, and there was David Meets, right alongside the builders, troubleshooting, helping, organizing, and keeping our congregation updated every single step of the way. Dave, I know that you are a lover of sacred music, but I believe that it is your love for God that has helped to make this project happen. And so, on behalf of our congregation and our community, we thank you for that love and that faith. And finally, to Dr. Jeffrey Wright. On Sunday mornings, we call him Jeff, but on Sunday afternoons, we call him Dr. Jeffrey Wright. And this is not only a reflection of his educational accolades, but of the healing touch that you bring to the worship life of our church. You have often said to me that every single Sunday service is like staging a new live musical twice a week, every week. And I have watched you not only direct us in song, but direct us in spirit. Dr. Wright, you have not only brought to this project leadership, but a spirit of excellence that calls all of us to be more like Christ. And so on behalf of our congregation, we present to you both these small tokens of our gratitude. We simply cannot say thank you enough for what you have done. And now to all of our donors, our committee members, our builders, and these incredible individuals, won't you join me in a rousing round of applause of gratitude and thanks. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. And at this time, we turn things over to our guest artist, Mr. Martin Ellis, who has previously served as the organist at North United Methodist Church, as well as Second Presbyterian Church before relocating to Portland, Oregon. I want to also share that Lynn Sylvester, one of our members here at Noblesville First, commissioned the anthem that the choir will sing on today's program. May the music that flows from this organ fill our lives with peace, hope, and inspiration. You are welcome.
Wow, I tell you, it's been a while since I've done an organ dedication and seen this many people, and I probably know half of you at this point. And all of these new friends from the choir at Noblesville from this morning, so there we go. It's great to see all of you here. These are exciting events, and here's why. This instrument, because it's a pipe organ, will be here easily 70 more years. That means every wedding, every funeral, every big service that this church has, or special events, concerts, like the church that I work at in Vancouver. It's that sound that kind of breathes in the room that you'll hear over and over again, and that will become a part of your own life. And that's why Mr. Reynolds and I do what we do, and advocate for what we advocate. So it's not just a piece of equipment. It's not just a soundboard. It's breathing back here, really hefty after that especially. So anyway, the other thing I forgot about, I wrote that whole big long bunch of program notes for your program. So as you get bored during the concert, there are some specific things that I've written about for each piece. This is my dream concert to present because it contains, first of all, it's going to show every aspect that I can find of this instrument. And it also presents a lot of new music by composers that I know personally, including myself, which that's coming. Well, like Pastor Jill said this morning, you have to get to know yourself, and that's been my journey too. But we'll get to that one a little bit later on. So there's some classical pieces, some you'll recognize and some you won't. That particular piece I wrote for an opera singer in Vancouver that was a dear friend of mine and of our church. And she would come, and she had a great big voice, and she was a music teacher for Vancouver schools, and she died of cancer last year. And Haydn, the composer Haydn, did not really write a lot for organ unless it was the little fluty types of things. And so I wanted to do something from that classical period, not Baroque, that was just a barn burner that was in that style because I knew she would have loved it. She used to sing a lot of the Mozart arias and that sort of thing. Played that as the prelude for a funeral. So anyway, that is the story behind that. Now we go to Bach. So I played my concerto. How bold is that? I started the concert with me, and now I'm going to play Bach's concerto in D minor, the first movement. Okay. Thank you very much. Our next piece of music goes to the softer side, and that's one thing. See, I never know. I know Thad's organs are going to be great because I've played many of them. And the two that I've played on this trip, Minster, Ohio, and this one, are I think two of your best that you've done, honestly, voicing-wise. They've had some hard things happen during this process, and the man that passed away from their company, and remind me, because that's horrible, but remind me of his name again. Jim Miller. It was literally pick up your paycheck at work and get hit at the intersection situation with that. And so Thad called after we'd had an upbeat chat about everything that was going on up here. And so this next piece is one that he would have actually loved. And that's why we chose it. And so we're going to serve this as sort of a dedication to Jim Miller. And it's Song of Peace by Jean Langlais that shows some of the very softest sounds of the organ and beautiful flute solo and all of that. So just kind of think of those people maybe that you miss or those tragedies that you've had, because many of us have had them. We just don't always want to admit it. And so this is your moment to kind of give that some thought. And then in particular, our family at Reynolds, this is our moment for that as well. So how many people recognize the title Toccata in D minor? Really, I should see more hands than that. This is how I am with the high school kids I teach now. It's like, that just doesn't work for me. Okay, so Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, the most famous. Yeah, thank you. We sat next to each other this morning. She was up here. At any rate, other composers have written toccatas in D minor. I haven't done that yet, but I might when I get home, actually, now that I think about it. Max Reger was if you know about the different periods of musical styles, or the big chunks of them, we have the Baroque period, which is all the noodly types of things, then the Mozart era, which is called classical period. After that is impressionistic romantic music. Then headed into 20th century. We are now, believe it or not, and I get this wrong in workshops about my own stuff, we're 21st century composers now. It took me a while to wrap my mind around that. It's like, okay, now I'm on the forefront of that whole mess. We have to decide what sound we're going to have. But, which you'll hear that later too. But Max Reger was a German composer that lived very close to where Bach had played. By the time he was playing, several things had occurred. Bach's instruments were hand-pumped by people. So that means if he wanted to practice, he had to get people, and have them come with him in a non-heated church, usually, to go practice. That can't have been easy. I'm trying to think of any of you that I could call and say, hey, I need 4 hours, and you have to pump the whole time. By the time Reger got into the mix, they had these fancy electric blowers that did high pressure like we have here. And so his sound approach was considerably different than what Bach's had been. Bach could pull out a bunch of stops, and if the good old boys in the back quit, that just was not going to go well. But Reger didn't have that problem, and his style was very complex, albeit in the same musical form as what Bach had written. And I love this piece. It's not long, but it's intense. Reger was thinking he was writing cinema and movie music, but we didn't have that yet. But he could have. So that's kind of what I want you to think about. That's my favorite genre of music anyway, as you will figure out later on. But those of you that know me know that already. So anyway, this is late Romantic period movie music by Max Reger. Thank you. It's a wild piece. It's like almost like a silent movie kind of thing, actually, as we know that to have been, but much harder than what the silent movie organist could have played, usually. This next piece, now I'm going to introduce several people that are very close to me now. Carson Kuhlman is the organist at Memorial Chapel at Harvard University. He has been composing since he was about 10 and has a body of working on 4,000 works now. He's 42 years old. He is the head organ editor for Lorenz Corporation in Dayton, Ohio, and is my boss as part of the writing team for that now, that has happened in my life. One of the most helpful, nicest guys and creative that I've ever run across. He's the editor. You hear people that have written books or music or whatever, and you wait and you don't hear anything. No, Carson's not that way. I mean, he'll call within 5 minutes, and he treats email like it's texting. That's the cute part. So he'll start quick firing emails, and I'm like, I have to go to work this morning. I can't sit here and do this. But he has had so many good ideas and has promoted a lot of the music that I've written, many of which are being published. And I have a book coming out next spring with Lorenz, the first big collection. And I'm very thankful for that. And I wanted to play two of his pieces. This one is interesting because those of you that are musicians, it is nothing but quarter notes. That's one note per beat in four, which is very interesting. And he based these three pieces on 3 watercolor paintings by a German artist that he met when he was touring in Germany and loved her work so much he wanted to set it to music. And that's what these are. The title of that, which I can't pronounce, I'm not even going to try it. I tried it in Minster, Ohio, which is a German town. Disaster. Not going there. So it means sunset. And this particular piece starts with the softest sound on the organ and builds and builds. I've got 16 different registration changes in this short piece of music. And you hopefully won't notice that they're happening. So, because it just, and when I first heard this, I was on a dog walk at Portland State University with the chihuahuas that yip at my heels usually. And I thought, it's one of the things that as it starts, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And that's exactly what he wanted. And by the end, I was in tears. Now you can imagine Portland, Oregon, a little edgy, at the dog park, middle of the evening, and I'm standing there crying. They thought, what is wrong with this guy? And the dogs are just like, we're done with him. So anyway, this is Sunset. You're really going to be a fun crowd. I haven't had this much fun on the mic in a long time. And I am way more of an edgy comedian than I was when I lived here, y'all. So just get ready for that. And older, wisdom is a wonderful thing. So anyway, close your eyes, visualize something beautiful that you find beautiful. And in some cases, that really might be a painting for some of you. And let this piece, if I do it well, do what it's supposed to do. So that's your challenge. Now I'm teaching. That's your challenge for this particular piece of music. And just enjoy that it is beautiful on this instrument, too. Thank you so much. Well, before we take an intermission break, and what they used to call it second pres, let you have your creature comforts. I was always at wedding rehearsal. I always thought that was kind of weird. But at any rate, it makes sense though. Before we do that, I'd like to play a piece by Dr. Jaebon Huang. She is a relatively new friend of mine, joined our team at Lorenz. She's a Korean American organist that's 42. I don't know what it is with the 42-year-old age range right now. And I met her in San Diego when I played at Balboa Park last summer. And we had talked online, and her book came out. And she studied film scoring in New York City before she moved out to the West Coast. So that was her initial degree. And she is a fine organist and about the best service player I've ever heard. She's leaving, actually. I just found that out last week. But she's a First Methodist in San Diego. It's a very, very big church, interesting building, and an organ about 4 times bigger than this one. And so that's what she presides over. And this is her big party piece that I'd like to close this out with for the moment. It's a reaction to Psalm 150, and she just simply calls it Fanfare to Psalm 150. There we go. Oh, it's loud now. Usually, if it has the button on the bottom, I never remember to do that. And we'll give a chance for the choir. That was phenomenal, guys. So, and what's interesting, as a composer, writing choral music, which is what I spent most of my earlier years doing. When I was with the Indianapolis Children's Choir and Youth Chorale, I was their staff arranger and orchestrator and did a number of pieces with them on the Henry Leck and Ruth Dwyer choral series. And so I gave that up 11 years ago when I moved to Portland and was really busy featuring younger composers' music when I would play and at church. That was invigorating to me at the time. And I had reached out to get to know people like you're going to hear. Marianne Kim from Chicago is on the program later today. Brenda Portman's a dear friend. She's at Hyde Park Community Methodist in Cincinnati, Ohio, and probably one of the best composers and organists that we have out there. And so they encouraged me. What was interesting this morning is that Pastor Nicole has not felt well, and so I'm not going to say sub, because that's not even accurate, but the former associate pastor, Jill, came in and gave a sermon today, and I just sat there kind of stunned, because that sermon was for me. And many of the things, how many of you were here this morning? Can I just see the show? Well, wow, okay, good. You know, how many of you could resonate with that? Really? I mean, she talked about, you know, how things happen to you sometimes that are just not cool. You know, this is my summation in country farm boy language of what she eloquently said up here this morning. And that's true. I've had a bunch of that happen during COVID and hit a pretty bad point at one point. And so I didn't know what was going to come next. And without giving any kind of details, because we're not going that far, it was tough, and hers was tough. And like she said this morning, the Holy Spirit is the one that opens those doors. And I hadn't believed that for a long time. You know, I was at that point. And Brenda Portman, the composer, is a very spiritual lady, and she and I talked a lot about our personal stuff as we got to know each other. And so I shared a lot of things with her, and she said, you know, you really need to let this go. And that's what Jill said this morning, and that meant so much to hear that. I needed to hear it again. So composing for organ, there's a topic. There are a lot of people that have done it. I did that in college. And on a day, I'd had a kind of a theme running in my head for a long time. And on one of those days, it was sort of bad. I grabbed the computer and I went down to my friend's church and thought, I'm going to write this. Because my friends had said, you need to just start writing your own. Well, that went kind of well. And I must have listened. I recorded the piece and listened to it about 50 times, waiting for it to stink, honestly. You know, it's like each time thinking, this can't be good. And then I would think it was kind of good. And then I'd do it again. So I was this psycho with headphones on running around town, basically. But so it opened a door that I didn't know needed to be opened. And the time that I spend 20 to 30 hours a week now as a composer and an arranger, and it just fills me. It really does. And I never knew. I'm 56 years old, 55 years old, didn't know that that's what I needed to be doing. And so now I've got, 12 pieces published, 70 on self-publishing, and I have a book coming out next year with Lorenz. Never would have dreamed that would have happened. So I wanted to play a cross-reference of some of my stuff for you today. You just heard an anthem. I guess that was enough, probably. But so Sortie and G, we just go right down the list of what these are. I wrote a little bit about each one of them. It was one of the earlier pieces that I wrote, and what the whole intent there, simplistically put, I just was writing myself a postlude because I was bored. It ended up being sort of a cinematic John Williams kind of piece. And so I opened Balboa Park Concert with that. And so that's what we're going to start with. The Renaissance Dance Suite, my editor, Carson, had mentioned that he wanted a couple of us, if we were interested, to watch videos of Renaissance dancers and the different types of dance forms. And that was so bizarre that I jumped on board with that and wrote 2 pieces for him. He actually commissioned those, and then decided I was going to write 3 of my own. So the courant is a fast dance that's lighter, that isn't particularly athletic in Renaissance times. It's more of an elegant dance. There's 4 movements to this whole thing that I'm not going to do all of those. Then a pavane is an entrance dance of couples that is very quiet and very solemn, not particularly fast. And I needed to write that one. It was the last one that I wrote out of the group of four, and it was Valentine's Day and raining. And so I decided, I was thinking about some things at home that are going better, and I have great home life, got all wrapped up in emotion on Valentine's Day and wrote a musical theater ballad for my pavane. So that's when that occurred. I had the idea pop into my head and went down and wrote that. So hopefully, I had a friend come up at the last concert. She said, thanks a lot for making me cry. And I'm like, so we'll see what happens with you. But hopefully it's a beautiful piece. It's one of the favorites of the things that I've done to my own. Then I teach high school kids musical theater and do big Broadway shows. That's huge on the West Coast. We are north of California. And so where Indiana always had show choirs, that was the big competitive thing. We do shows. That's the competition thing. The drama departments are massive. So I've gotten working with 3 big high schools and was doing SpongeBob the Musical. Just go ahead, let it rip. And which actually, it's a cool show. I had basically a converted rock band in the pit that I was conducting. And one of our songs was a rap song. Now, look at me. Do I appear that I have ever taught that style of music before? No. But it was going well, and the kid that was our lead for that particular song was doing such a good job with the dancing and the whole thing. I'm not even going to try to do that. That would be embarrassing. But so then I was working on a group of spirituals, and the song Witness is one that I've always loved. And I thought, what if I try to make a classical organ sound like the drum beat I'm hearing in the pit for the hip-hop thing? So that's what that piece is going to be. So instead of it being a drum, I'm doing open fifths in my hands and a complex rhythmic thing between my hands and my feet to try to get that effect. So we'll see what you think of it. And then I'm closing with a recent piece that was premiered this morning by Janet Pummel. She is an 82-year-old spitfire of an organist at University Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. Right now, she taught at TCU, head of the piano department, wrote the master's degree on collaborative piano, and has become a friend. That was the part of being a composer I didn't know about, was that half of it is social stuff, and social media and keeping up with people that love what I'm doing. And she's one of them. So I wrote her a piece, and it's tough. And so we've been working on it. She said, well, I'm doing the premiere because I get to do it Sunday morning and you're in Indiana. I said, yeah, you do. So she wrote back. She said, I missed some notes and cracked some things, but I don't think they noticed anything. I'm thinking, you know what? You play better than I do by far, and you're 82. So, so anyway, this will be my own premiere of Toccata in G. So here are 5 pieces, kind of a cross-referencing of my new career path that I'm on, and I hope that you'll enjoy these. Thank you. That gives you a little cross-referencing of what I've been up to. What do you think of the rap thing? I've got to be really, so what people don't realize about any arranger or composers, I have to record, oh, that's him. He's doing all this on the playback system. So see, Al doesn't even have to be here. He could put all of it in and then pre-program your service. And Nicole, honey, you are on your own. So you just push the button, it's the pianola thing. But the technology that we have now. But anyway, they think that we would remember. You know, I don't know how many times I have been in big rehearsals where a well-known composer would come in. Ruth Dwyer's here today. She and I did that many times. You know, and we look at them like they know what the piece is we're doing. And so now that I'm doing it, about 2 weeks after, if I don't do that demo recording right out of the gate, I have to practice. Because other things have happened, life has happened, the dogs have happened, and then I'm like, I forgot that I did that there. So that's just the reality of it. So that the hip-hop tune, that one is tricky because of the coordination of it. And I'm not good at that to begin with, you know. And so I worked on it. I had two people working on it out and about that wanted the music, and they kind of nailed it. And I sat down and fell all over myself. And I tried to I thought, I can just play this for a postlude. That did not go well at my church. And it was live streamed. I hate that part when it's a bad Sunday. So at any rate, those are little insights from the composer. Those are the real ones, the ones you don't hear very often. This next group of variations is written by Miss Marianne Kim. She's Korean, now living here in Chicago, and a very prolific arranger. She loves old hymns. That is her thing. And she comes from a background, when I finally talked to her, I've commissioned her twice to write things for me and for my flute duo that I'm in. But she's very intriguing, and she said, well, here's what happened. It's hard to kind of understand her, actually, when we first started to talk. She said that she had been in a jazz and R&B group and studied that and loved it. And so they would perform on weekends. And she said, I got really good at that. She said, but then I was a classical organ major over here, and neither one of them knew that I did the other. She said, I just sort of went into one thing, and then I'd go to the other. And she could play Bach, she could play Messiaen, and then she sits down and just tears it up with gospel and R&B. So very unique person. And so the Denver Symphony Orchestra organist actually commissioned this piece of music. It's an 8-minute piece that goes through the Sunday school hymn, Little Church in the Wildwood. And some of you would know that. Very simple tune that isn't after she gets done. So she runs us through a little bit of, excuse me, that was awful. Runs us through a little bit of jazz, a little bit of ragtime, a little bit of Bach, and a whole bunch of other things, all in this one arrangement. It shows off about everything on the organ we've got left. So enjoy Church in the Wildwood. Well, thank you very much. You know, the hardest part of that whole blasted piece is that thing that sounds like a Hammond near the end. But it comes after all of that, and it's like, crap. So we keep practicing. So it's been an honor to be with you today. And I am facing a project with the instrument at Vancouver First United Methodist Church. It was a Wix, or it is a Wix. Was. It's like it went away while I was gone. That needs a little bit of help at this point. And so I've taken notes, and I have a folder from Knob Funk. We are Vam Funk. So I thought our initials couldn't be outdone, but they have been. So, but it's been really fun to be up here and to be kind of back home in Indiana again. And so I have, my dad never has said anything at a concert. He is here and has asked to say something on the microphone, which terrifies me. So I'm going to have him, this is C. Robert Ellis. It's the school superintendent I grew up with. So you can see where all this comes from. You come down here. I'm terrified, really.
Well, I'm 85, and I'm just privileged to be here. My wife and my daughter are also here. But I want to tell you, he will never tell you all this. But we adopted him when he was 2 weeks old. My wife and I had lost twins, and the doctor said, well, why don't you go adopt you a child, and maybe you'll have one. Well, lo and behold, after we adopted Martin, and we had a daughter, Karen, she's sitting over here, and a son, Dwight. So we're pleased to have 3 lovely children, and they're all different. But I have to share this about Martin. When he was a senior, he came home and he said, Dad, I'm really disturbed. I said, what's the matter? He said, well, the guidance counselor wanted to know what we were going to do in college. And he said, I told her that I wanted to go in music. He said, oh, you can't make any money in music. You don't want to go in music. And I said, son, what do you want to do? He said, I like music. I said, that's what you should do. So he went to DePaul University and studied there. And I don't think that he's ever been disappointed. And it's what you love to do. And I know he loves what he's doing. And that's what we need to do, each of us, when we go to work, love what we're doing, be there, enjoying it. And we've been fortunate to hear him play when he was in 5th grade at the Brethren Church in North Manchester, Indiana. That was his first. He couldn't drive. I don't know how many churches I took him to play before he could drive.
Actually, I'm sure.
And then we've been fortunate to hear him give a concert at Westminster Abbey. We've heard him give the largest outdoor organ in Balboa Park in San Diego, and now today. And thank you, son.
Thank you much. Well, that wasn't as bad as it could have been. I was not an easy kid. Let me just say that up front. There were maybe I hid most of it, and so they were saved from all of it. This final piece today, during COVID, I told you about the different composers that I talked to. Well, that was online. Everything was online. Church was online, and I was the only one allowed in a controversial situation church anyway, at Central Lutheran up in Portland. I had to basically go to the federal government to try to get into the building by myself just to use the organ and do recordings for what they were doing on Zoom, because they wanted us to try a Yamaha keyboard at home. That, of course, was anybody that's used Zoom. And I had a studio apartment at the time. It wasn't, I tried to set up a corner that looked like a worship space. So it was like, that was not good. And so I was the only one in there. And so I was at my desk, and I had this stack of books from Lorenz that Carson had called me, and he and I have known each other a long time, and said, you need to check out my new catalogs. He had just gotten the editor position. He said, because it's not going to be what you think it is. And so when he says that, he's such a gamer geek that I thought, well, I probably should do that. And so I did, and found Brenda Portman and Marianne Kim, who wrote the piece that I just played. And so Brenda and I, like I said, got to be really good friends. And she's the real deal, composer-wise. I mean, she's writing things that are as good as anything anybody in France did. And so I said, I want to commission you for the first time ever. I would like to commission a piece for our colleagues that are going through this as organists during COVID. I was sitting on the steps down in the park blocks of Portland at First Christian Church where my friend plays, and called her and asked her about that. So we went back and forth on it. She ended up writing a 7-movement work called Ecclesia, which is the church. Terribly appropriate for Pentecost Sunday. And there are different scriptural texts that she paints into a picture. This is the last movement of Ecclesia. It's a big old flashy toccata, because she does those well. It sounds very French, but it uses the hymn tune, Come My Way, My Truth, My Life, by Vaughan Williams. She did not know that was one of my all-time favorite hymns. So that got creepy, actually, for a while. She picked 3 of them for this work and included them. And I said on the phone, like, Brenda, how did you know that I loved all 3 of those? She's like, well, the Spirit knows. These are the kind of comments she makes, and she was right. So I'd like to share this as our closing piece today, and then I'm going to let you guys get out of the heat, because it's hot in here. So I go into more heat in Indiana outside the front door. So this will be the toccata from Ecclesia.